you just mentioned the idea of saving money. Um, how present is that in everything you do? I mean, obviously,
Always.
let's keep it on a situation where we're on a mainstream car, which is for the mass market. Like, obviously, let's say where Tesla is right now. Let's not talk about these special editions for Rolls Royce and stuff like that, because on that there's no budget there. You can build anything you want, but if you really develop a production car which is going to sell in the hundreds of thousands, if not even millions, how much pressure on budget do you have straight from the beginning, and how do you work with that?
So in a perfect world, we would strategize a product. We would talk about it, who it is for, what this end product should cost, and then obviously in the overall BOM, we would also come back and forth towards each area of the vehicle and say, well, we have this material. And I think because it's an A plus or A surface, we categorizing the materials and parts in the vehicle into like A, B, C, D surfaces, meaning an A plus plus surface, and other car companies might do this a different way, is, for example, the steering wheel. The customer constantly engages and touches the steering wheel. So the importance of the perceived quality of this is very high. You could save money, for example, on areas such as the map pocket or lower areas or flooring, because it's not a high-end surface, but it's still a visible surface. So that's where we categorize through the vehicle and say, okay, if this is the vehicle cost and these are the materials we would like to use, or it's a placeholder for a material, and you divide up the cost factors and discuss with purchasing how much they're going to give you, how much you're going to haggle around with them to maybe get more or less. You're trading like on a Turkish bazaar on a carpet, like say, I give you, I give you a little bit more. I save some more money on the floor if you give me a little bit more money for the decor. And then you kind of meet in the middle and come to a price you can then discuss in your development process with a supplier and say, hey, I would like a wood or recycled wood decor, but this is the max price we can spend on. What can we get out of this? So you're negotiating a lot there. So price is a very important factor in the overall development process. Um, to paddle back there a little bit, what happens mostly and where there's a lot of money put into and gets lost along the way is coming back to the Indian exterior design, the architecture of the car. It happens, and then the initial brief of the vehicle is, yeah, we would like to be competitive with a Panamera, for example, or with a Bentley in that kind of category. So the designers are then kind of putting their efforts into the architecture as well as the CMF. Said, okay, we could see if it's a premium vehicle, these are the finishes I would like to propose, and you start developing those. And being CMF being put behind the architecture again, surfaces are designed maybe on a seat or on part breakups that are not beneficial for cost, for example. If you would like to make a vehicle that has a base, a mid, and a high-end version, you want to be smart about where you make your cut lines, how you break parts, so you can trim certain areas or make them mold and color, for example, in order to save costs and weight. But if this brief doesn't happen early on with the architecture, then you have to go back into the tooling or the redesign of the architecture. And that's where a lot of things go wrong then. You have seat surfaces that are not divided up in certain areas to save money on parts and on finishes. Then you have to go back and redesign that or retool certain things. And that's normally then when the tooling had been done and the CMF is, let's say, 60% there, and they see, oh, this car costs us too much now. And we're like, yeah, well, we told you if you would have designed the surface that way, we could have taken the lower area of the IP and not trimmed it and doing only the upper area of the IP, which could have saved us weight and cost and given us the possibility to an upgrade for the customer. Well, tough shit, it hasn't happened. In the end, what happens to, I'd say, 99.9%, When there's a cost down round of a vehicle, CMF gets beaten up and they're taking the money out of the finishes and colors and materials, downgrading maybe the leather to a lower grade leather, where we wouldn't recommend that, but the perceived quality then of that product the customer engages with will be harmed on that kind. But there's no other way than to do it. So they can't retool at that point. They have to take money out somewhere else. So if they wouldn't have had the afterthought of the CMF past the architecture and wouldn't have to retool certain things, they would have had the opportunity to design the architecture smarter, not to have the cost down on the CMF. The hard part on the cost down on the CMF is when you give a product to the end consumer, he would say then, I wish this leather would feel nicer. I think the leather on this product, it's nicer. I wish this grain wouldn't be that way. Why do I have this stitch line on there? It hurts. Why is this stitch line right on my elbow there? Well, the architecture was designed that way and we couldn't trim it in a different way because that's the only way we could do it at that point in time.